It is with great pleasure that I get to introduce you to our next keynote speaker here at Rumba 2015. For me, shared stories have always served as powerful vehicles, helping us reconcile our own experiences, emotions, and thoughts as we cast ourselves into the role of the protagonist. A story that we all know far too well and continue to experience on a day-to-day basis is our coming out. And perhaps the most memorable moment is that one that you experience the first time you decide to take that leap. Here to share her story and her take on this process is Morgana Bailey, a VP at State Street and former longtime consultant. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Morgana Bailey.
Hi, I want to first thank the Reaching Out team for having me here. I want to thank you as participants of the conference for welcoming me. I'd like to thank the production crew who's been awesome, and also thank you for this wonderful lunch, who's made that, and the servers for serving it to us. Thank you. So I was born and raised in the Midwestern part of the United States, and in my youth, I prided myself as being really unique and open-minded in this conservative town that I grew up in. And just to demonstrate my uniqueness to you, I want to share with you a postcard that I sent out to all my family and friends when I was studying abroad my junior year in college. I studied in London, and this picture is from the oh, no, too far. Hey. It's from the British Museum of Art, and I was so proud of this for being such a weirdo. So one evening when I was in London, I snuck off by myself and didn't tell anyone where I was going. And I went to this play called The Adventures of Robin Hood, but this was a twist on the traditional play of Robin Hood. Robin was spelled R-O-B-Y-N. And it was played by a female lead, and she falls in love with the female character of Maid Marian. And I'll never forget the overwhelming feelings I felt that night sitting in that audience full of women. On the one hand, I finally felt like I was home. But on the other hand, I felt conflicting feelings. I felt fear of what would happen to my life if I ever truly became a part of this sisterhood. And so those conflicting feelings and fear led me to suppress my sexuality. I hid that prior unique self, and I worked very hard to fit in, blend in, and not stand out anymore. So fast forward to last year, June of 2014, 16 years after I was watching that play in London, and I was reading The Advocate magazine in secret and hiding. I still was getting the opaque cover on that Advocate magazine. And I read this statistic: 12 years, the length by which life expectancy is shortened for gay, lesbian, and bisexual people in highly anti-gay communities compared to accepting communities. And I want to pause here and say that if that study had looked at transgender community members, that number would be even higher. So this statistic scared the living crap out of me. I realized I was killing myself, and I was missing opportunities to change the atmosphere of discrimination in my own community. And so I knew I needed to do something to force myself to live my truth, and all those years of denial, it needed to be a little bit more dramatic than normal. So later that month, I submitted an application to give a TED Talk with my company, State Street. And that November, 2014, I stood on a stage in front of 350 of my coworkers, and I came out as a lesbian. Thank you. So the night before I gave my TED Talk, I thought to myself, this is irrelevant. This is just one more stupid coming out story, and there's going to be no difference made when I do this. But I'm pleased to say that since my talk went online in January of this year, it's been viewed 2.1 million times. The reaction has been incredible. In the talk, I actually mentioned that during the process, the greatest obstacles I would ever really have to overcome were my own fears and insecurities, not external things. But I actually doubted that statement even as I was saying it on stage. And I still had such fears, especially about coming out so publicly and what would happen to me. But however, this truth has manifested itself. Truly what I had to overcome were my own fears and insecurities, because I have been contacted by hundreds of people directly, and 99.5% of them have said nothing but kind, caring, and supportive things. Now, this is not including the trolls at the bottom of the TED comments, so that's not direct contact in my mind. But serious direct contact to me through LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and all those different mediums. So most of those people have shared a lot of covering or hiding stories with me, whether it's being gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, or genderqueer. A lot of people are sharing their own covering stories with me. And some of them are covering other things in their life, which we all may be too, like the fact that their family has a history of mental illness and their mother committed suicide, to one woman who's even hiding her cancer treatments from her family and friends because she didn't want to be known as another pink ribbon cancer survivor. So I mentioned that 99.5% of the reaction has been positive, but sometimes it's that little negative percent that keeps you up at night. And one such reaction I had was from a woman who told me, "Congratulations, this is great, I'm a lesbian too. But what are you doing by coming out in this manner and shoving this into people's faces?" She thought you should slowly get to know people and then over time reveal that you're gay to them. Well, that night I went home and I was completely upset, and I thought to myself, what have I done? This was the opposite reaction of what I wanted to do. I would in no way wanted to make my coworkers feel uncomfortable by doing that. And so I toiled over it and I lost a lot of sleep. And then when I got up the next morning, I thought to myself, hell no. I had spent 16 years hiding and covering myself, trying to please other people throughout my entire life, and I was done. I could not let anyone else shove me back into that closet again. So I immediately thought, what is the gayest thing I can do to piss her off? And I chopped my hair off. So maybe that wasn't the most constructive method to be visible as a queer, gay, lesbian, whatever woman. And I found better paths to demonstrate my visibility in the meantime. Oops, I think this is an old slide set. Okay, so why should we be visible? Well, some of us are working hard to be visible, and I understand, or working hard to not be visible, and I get that. But specifically into relationship, into being visible in the workplace today, there are several convincing reasons why I think we should be visible. And in my TED Talk, I quote a study about covering from the Deloitte University Leadership Center for Inclusion. And the concept of covering has been around for many years, since 1963, but they wanted to dive a little bit deeper. And covering is different than suppressing, which is what I would say that I did. I was completely suppressing that I was gay. Some people are hiding it, so they're living more of a double life, right? So they're in work, they're hiding it, but out socially in their personal life. And this is different because it's just subtly downplaying some of your differences. That's what covering is about. So, there are non-queer examples of covering in the study looked at. So like one of them would be avoiding, like saying, I'm gonna go pick up my daughter early, I'm gonna leave work a little bit early because it looks like you're not career-oriented and not serious about your career. Maybe not sticking up for a certain group when a joke is made about a religion, or let's say a veteran's status. Or even modifying yourself physically. So, hiding tattoos, straightening your hair, those are all examples of other types of covering. So this Deloitte study was conducted And they interviewed 3,000 people. And of those, 61% of all those people said, yeah, I'm covering something at work. Even straight white men are covering. So 45% of the straight white men were covering something. So of the self-identified lesbian, gay, and bisexual participants, 83% were covering at work. Now, what's fascinating about this is that they may have been known socially at work in their little circles that they were already gay. They were just trying to downplay their gayness to not seem too gay. Now, examples of this would be not putting up your spouse's picture on your desk, not bringing a spouse to a client-facing work function because you're a little bit worried about the risk of that. It could be changing your outfit, so women not wanting to wear a tie to work, or changing the way you talk or present yourself. So those are all examples of covering at work. And what the study concluded was that because employees see leadership with a certain profile of gender, race, religion, sexuality, education, all these different things, they think they have to reflect that in order to get to the top and grow their career. So this just reinforces the fact, not only do we need leadership, obviously, where we talk about the visible diversities all the time, we need more of that, yes, but we also need leaders to talk about their invisible diversities. So that's what's going to create more inclusive cultures, is when our leaders reflect back to us what we know we are too, and can get there as well. So then the study asked participants, does your company value inclusion? And of course, like many of us have heard companies, 93% said, yeah, absolutely, my company articulates inclusion as a value. But of those people, 78% stated that they actually saw their organization living up to that value, right? So 1 in 5 employees is saying, my company does not walk the diversity and inclusion talk. That's not good, right? So employees in this study are telling us, 1, covering still exists in large amounts, and 2, companies are still struggling to create inclusive environments. So you can help change this. Be visible. 1, internally with your coworkers, and 2, externally with your clients. So you may be at a point in your life where you don't need another PRIDE employee resource group or student group if you're still in school, and you're like, there's legitimate reasons why I understand some people don't even want to be a part of them, or they don't think they should exist, right? But I can guarantee you your employee resource group needs you. I suggest at least trying to be visibly supportive of their activities and present at their events. And I also truly believe that these groups help with the critical need for us to educate each other. I think Laverne said that beautifully last night. We still have transgender visibility needs. We still have genderqueer, bisexual visibility. We need to educate each other and understand what's going on in our own community, and that's one way employee resource groups can help. And then I suggest being visible externally to your clients. Now, you may be at a point in your life where you would think, I will never need to not come out. I've gotten this far, I'm never gonna hide this. But I can guarantee you, you'll probably be in external client-facing situations, and they're gonna casually assume that you are not queer and ask you a question. And you will probably hesitate, because there is a risk of losing business there. There is a fear still, and it's long ingrained, I think, in our society. And so I'm asking you to prepare yourself before these situations even occur, and just think of what you're gonna casually respond back to them. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out story. It can, to help them understand, but I will almost guarantee that you're gonna be surprised at their reaction, and they're probably gonna trust you more. Okay, so here I am. It's been 8 months since that woman told me I came out in the wrong way. My hair has grown back in, but I'm getting to speak at a conference with Laverne Cox. Okay. No, I've been humble, I swear. So I actually started a Pride group in my own Kansas City office, which I'm in right now, and because even though my company had great inclusive policies and programs, it wasn't present in my Kansas City office. There was just different cultures in different satellite offices, and it was a stigma. And I needed that when I walked in that door and I didn't have it, so I had to take it on myself to create that. And what's been wonderful is since January, I launched that. I have 40 members. I have 15 who are truly active. And many of those people have said to me they waited to join the group because they feared those repercussions of what would happen to them internally. And I'm so proud to see them standing at these events and coming to these events and posting on our internal sites about it. Being visible will create change in small ways and big ways, but I just think it's critically important to be visible. I heard an interesting fact the other day. They said that after John F. Kennedy gave his inaugural speech, they talked to some of the people who heard him speak, and they did not want to follow JFK. They wanted to be like him. And role modeling is critical for us. I believe it helps others imagine where they will be able to get one day, and then of course it also helps others understand us. And understand that we are everywhere and we do matter. So I recently read a quote that nicely captures a primary lesson I've learned through my experience in the last year. Clarity comes from engagement, not thought. So I spent years second guessing and thinking through my core authentic self. I had to stop thinking and start acting if I were to ever live a truly meaningful life. I found my uniqueness again, and I'm doing my best to help cultivate change. I thank you for living your truth and also helping cultivate that same change. I wish you all the best of luck. Thank you.